Sausage.
Hello everyone, this is Attack the Backlog, the podcast where I, Marcus Nez, tries to make a dent in their backlog one game at a time. This episode is all about Vanquish, a third-person cover-based shooter where you always have a cigarette to smoke when it would have been way cooler to always have a sandwich to eat. Just think about it. You could vanquish enemies while eating a sandwich full of so many toppings you'd say, hey, that's outlandish. As you think about Goku's brother Raditz, because you just rewatched Dragon Ball Z, and no, I'm not playing Mad Libs, even though the randomness of this intro is making you anguish what I'm doing with the English language, as I sit here and languish trying to find the words to describe Vanquish. Actually, it's pretty damn simple. Holy shit, what was I smoking when I wrote this godforsaken intro? Oh, you're a guy in a powered suit. You can slide super fast on the ground and initiate slow-mo while sliding or in the air. And you shoot countless robots in the face. The end. That's all Vanquish is, I guess. According to me and my intro. Well, there's more to it than just that, but that's the basic gist of what Vanquish is. And speaking of Vanquish, Vanquish originally came out on October 19th, 2010 for PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360, and it eventually made its way to PC on May 25th, 2017 and received a port to PlayStation 4 and Xbox One with enhanced visuals and performance on February 18th, 2020, a few days after Valentine's Day. You love Vanquish? Well, it loves you too, baby. Oh yeah, happy Valentine's Day, you sweet little son of a bitch. I wanted to like Vanquish. I don't know where that hostility came at the end, but I'm sorry. I wanted to like Vanquish. I really wanted to like Vanquish, but I didn't. And I didn't because the game gets in its own way. There are two versions of Vanquish. The Vanquish one plays when they boot up the game and play it like any normal person would, and the Vanquish one plays after they do a bit of research, watch some YouTube videos, and talk with friends about all the little details the game never bothers to tell you itself. I fall into the former camp as most would, and it's not my fault. It's Vanquish's fault. There are so many intricacies to the mechanics of Vanquish that completely change the experience, but if you don't know they exist, what good are they? Vanquish tells you the bare minimum in its brief and skippable tutorial, leaving out so many details that make the game cooler, easier, and just a more enjoyable experience overall. On the surface, Vanquish looks like just another third-person cover-based shooter, spicing things up with super sliding and a slowdown mechanic. The shooting is okay, but nothing special, and the cover system is wonky to say the least. But the thing is, Vanquish is not a third-person cover-based shooter. Sure, it may look like one, and sure, you can play it like one, but at its core, it's a character action game like Bayonetta. Bayonetta? It's a character action game like Bayonetta and Devil May Cry, which shouldn't be a surprise since it's made by Platinum Games, a studio that knows a thing or two about character action games. The problem is, I don't know what happened with that little slip up earlier, but I'm keeping it in, baby. The problem, as I've already stated, is that the game doesn't tell you any of this. It puts all the work on your shoulders, forcing you to figure things out on your own by either experimentation or pure dumb luck. But the more likely scenario is you'll be playing the game wondering why people like it, only to learn hours into your playthrough, or maybe after you've already finished it, wink, 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 nudge, 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 that there are so many mechanics in the game that not only make it a more enjoyable experience, but an easier and less frustrating one as well. That said, let's first tackle the game like a normal person would, who lacks the knowledge gained from reading message boards, watching YouTube videos, and having conversations with those who are already well versed with the game. The core mechanics of Vanquish revolve around shooting, super sliding in your fancy schmancy exo-scoot, taking cover when need be, and slowing down time when you dodge roll and immediately zoom down the barrel of your gun, or automatically when you're at death's door. The super sliding and slowdown mechanic work off your suit's power, and if you use either for too long, your suit will overheat and you will have to wait until it cools off before you can use either ability again. You also have a powered melee attack which works off the same system. This means if your suit overheats, you can't slow down time, you can't slide around the environment, and you can't use melee. I hate this system. I hate it because it limits your abilities in such a black and white way that if you're not being careful and let your suit overheat, you go from feeling like a badass to feeling like a chicken with its head cut off. I understand not being able to super slide or slow down time or hit someone with a powered up melee attack, but why can't I just sprint like a normal person instead? you're still a dude. You can run, right? Right? Why can't I use a weak melee attack that does no damage or very little damage, but at least pushes enemies away if they're right up on top of me? I've seen Sam sprinting in cutscenes, but I can't do it in game, and it's annoying. Annoying because if you can't slide around, all you're good for is a light jog. If not for the constant ability to dodge roll, finding cover after you've overheated and find yourself vulnerable would be a pain in the ass. Then there's the melee. Honestly, why would anyone bother using melee attacks when one hit completely depletes your shoot's power? Except there's a way for melee attacks to not deplete your suit's power, only the game never tells you about it. Granted, it's incredibly tricky to pull off, especially in a game where everything is moving so fast, but if you manage to hit an enemy with the trail of your melee attack and not your actual body, you'll still do the expected damage without overheating your suit. This is probably one of the highest level actions you can perform if you manage to pull it off, but if you don't even know it's a thing, why would you even bother trying? And this is something you're going to hear a lot in this review. A lot of how Vanquish has so much going on underneath the surface, but for whatever reason decides to keep it a secret. Want to know something else about the melee? Your melee attack differs depending on what gun you have equipped. Want to bombard your enemy with a fury of punches? Equip that assault rifle and mash that button, baby. Like, subscribe, hit that bell. Yeah, boy! Would you like to super backslap the shit out of someone? Just pull out your shotty and hold that button until it's ready to rip. These are just a few examples of all the different melee attacks that exist in the game, all of which have strengths and weaknesses, but again, the game doesn't tell you any of this. The game also fails to mention you can slow down time in more ways than just by dodge rolling and aiming immediately afterwards. Are you in cover? Would you like to hop over said cover and maybe slow down time while in the air? You can do it. Just aim while jumping over said cover and what do you know? Time is slowed down. Want to shoot at enemies while sliding but see no point since you're moving so fast? No worries. If you do choose to shoot while sliding, time will automatically slow down because obviously you wouldn't be able to hit a thing when moving so fast otherwise. It's so frustrating to play a game that puts out this generic image of itself when it has so much going on that you would never even think to try out. Sure, there are things you'll stumble upon. For instance, I wasn't told about the ability to slow down time while sliding. I just tried it and figured it out on my own. But for every detail I figured out on my own, there were 9 others I never discovered until I was already done with the game. And the thing is, I think I'm madder at the game for not telling me how cool it actually is than I would have been if it really was just a generic throwaway cover-based shooter. I'm mad because after I finished my playthrough, I watched a few YouTube videos and my immediate thought was, that's not the game I played, because what I was watching in no way related to the experience I had. I saw moves I didn't know existed, mechanics that are never explained, and a flow to the combat that I never experienced. Remember when I said Sam is always smoking when he should be eating sandwiches instead? That really fucking terrible joke from the beginning of this episode? Did you know you can smoke 3 cigarettes per mission, and when you smoke a cigarette, you immediately toss it aside where it then draws the attention of all enemy robots? I didn't either. You know those walkers enemy robots occasionally drive that you can stop by either killing the robot piloting them or destroying the walker itself? Well, if you opt for killing the pilot instead of destroying the walker, you can actually hop in and pilot the thing yourself. You know that grenade you just threw? Well, if you slow down time and shoot it while it's still in midair, you will create a massive and incredibly destructive explosion. These are just a few examples of the many, and I must stress, many things you can do in Vanquish that the game never tells you can do in Vanquish. And I'm only scratching the surface because I myself have only started discovering all this now, having already played and beaten the game. Does all this game knowledge make me want to replay it? Kind of, but more so than that, it makes me feel like I wasted my time during my first playthrough, all because the game wanted me to figure this shit out on my own, I guess. Guess what, Vanquish? I didn't figure it out on my own. Instead, I had an okay time with you, thanks in large part because the anti-armor pistol is ridiculously OP and satisfying and is right up there with the pistol from Halo 1 as one of the greatest video game pistols of all time. If not for that pistol, I would have been far more annoyed with the game and would have left even more salty than I already am. Speaking of the weapons, before I wrap this review up, while there is a nice variety to choose from, the upgrade system incentivizes sticking with the same 3 weapons throughout your entire playthrough because the way you upgrade weapons is is by picking up the same gun if you're already at full ammo, or by finding a randomly dropped upgrade cube when an enemy dies. You see, you can only carry 3 guns at a time and 2 different types of grenades, though you're not actually carrying 3 different guns, but 3 different gun identifications or something along those lines, because when you switch between your equipped guns, Sam doesn't put one away and pull out another. Instead, his gun transforms from what you were using to what you want to use next. This is very cool and looks awesome, but I didn't realize this is how things worked until I finished the game. Admittedly, that part is purely cosmetic, but it's still super fucking cool to see it in action, and I was a little bummed that I never realized it while I was actually playing. But back to the upgrade system, because the main way you upgrade guns is by having them already on your person with full ammo, the game incentivizes both not trying out every weapon in the game, as well as using one gun until you've completely depleted its ammo so you can upgrade your other weapons if you come across a loose one on the battlefield. On top of that, because of this system, you don't automatically pick up ammo from weapons on the ground, and I found that super annoying. There's something there within the upgrade system, but the way it's implemented ends up taking away from the shooting as opposed to adding to it. Vanquish is an amazing game full of so many little details that make you feel like the biggest badass in the universe, if you know all those details are there when you play it. I didn't. So Vanquish was just an okay game for me, with okay shooting, a shitty cover system, and a story I couldn't give 2 shits about. The story is hot garbage with characters growling through every line and only a few cutscenes worth watching. By the way, did you know that if you perform a melee attack while sliding, you'll do a sweet ass dropkick that transitions into a backflip? No? Well, you do now. You're welcome. Anyway, that will do it for this here episode of Attack the Backlog. I do want to give a shout out before I get into the plugs and all that crap to Jordan from the Player One Podcast Discord for telling me about all these things you can do in Vanquish that I never knew existed. I'll be honest and say I don't know if I want to thank him or slap him for making me aware of this game I played but didn't actually play, but he is the one who told me about a lot of this stuff, and this script would have been very, very different if not for him. So thank you, Jordan. I wish you the best of luck in your baseball career. Also, I want to mention the main video Jordan showed me, which is called Wooly vs. Vanquish, and there will be a link in the description of this video for all those watching on the YouTubes. Anyway, for real this time, that will do it for this here episode of Attack the Backlog. Once again, I am Marcus Nez. Y'all can find me on Twitter and pretty much everywhere at PX Sausage. The site is not important. I'll get to that in a little bit. I mean, it's important, but just hold it for your horses. If you'd like to see me streaming games like Vanquish, you can do so over at twitch.tv/PX Sausage. If you'd like to check out the videos I make, like the one for this here episode of Attack the Backlog, you can do that over at youtube.com/pixelated sausage. Speaking of pixelated sausage, you put a dot after it, and then you add a C-O-M. I didn't say C-O-M. I'm coughing because the joke was terrible. My body was like, I'm not letting you say that. But if you put a .com after Pixelated Sausage, you got my site, which I referenced earlier and said it wasn't important, and I was lying about that. It is important, and it is also where you can find this podcast and the Pixelated Sausage podcast, both of which are available on podcast services across the globe. You can also check out the art I make, and if you see something you like, you can purchase a print of the piece you fancy. And if you fancy the site in general and anything that we do, please go over to patreon.com/PXS and support us that way. As always, thank you for watching or listening. I hope you enjoyed this here episode, and I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day.
This is a slave unit.
He must have been operating them remotely.
Yeah, controlling both of them at the same time. He stuffed him with tactical nukes. It was a pleasure meeting you. Sights out. Your bombs are gonna knock the colony out of orbit.
You cannot be foolish enough to think think I would let it fall back into American hands.
Damn it.
I would be more worried about my own whereabouts if I were you.